Yeah. Whisper here. Happy New Year to everyone. It's a new year, and I'm still here talking about random stuff. Um, so today I want to rant about stats and gear and bis lists and all of that nonsense because I feel like as we get more of these websites that aggregate data, we get further and further from what is actually happening with stats and gear, and we get really lost in the sauce. So let's try and get around that. Let's try and figure it out. So the first thing is what is data aggregation sites? Why do I hate them? And what's the point? Right. So you might have seen this. This is u.gg. It just basically pulls all of the data from Warcraft logs, and it just spits out popularity and damage and most popular gear and all that nonsense. Tells you stat priorities from top players. All right, agility, crit, mastery, verse, haste. Oh boy, here we go. And it'll tell you, certain other builds. It's a page that basically just fills out a bunch of checkboxes and goes, what are the talents, what are the gear? First thing you'll see is it's recommending that there's crafted items here. Now, without looking at this, you might go, oh, crafted items might be the best item, right? We see this a lot, especially, let me zoom in a little bit, you might be able to see that better. You might see this a lot where it's like, oh, crafted ring, crafted belt, crafted wrist. These are the best items. Oh, Chain of the Green Flight. This has to be the best item. Oh, but they're wearing 5 pieces of tier. How could that be? All of these things, you're looking at that, you're like, okay, 5 pieces of tier, but what's the off piece? Why are they crafting in 3 slots? Isn't there anything better in these slots? Yes, but it depends, right? It depends, and this is where bis starts to get into play. For example, Nick of Time, 2 of these are really good. However, a 489 dagger from Agira, for example, will beat a 483 Nick of Time. So if you're just looking at popularity, a lot of this doesn't make much sense. Versatility being above haste also doesn't really make much sense. But it'd be like that because they're just pulling a bunch of data out of the ether and then piling it together and then regurgitating it back out into one list, right? So it's super generalized and it doesn't really apply to a lot of people because it is simply what the most popular thing in any given slot is. It is a big mess. You might have seen sub-creation as well. I have it here pulled up to gems, so we can talk about stats a little bit. You'll see here, all of these gems, Mastery Crit, Mastery Haste, Mastery Crit, Mastery Crit, Crit Mastery, Mastery Crit, Mastery Verse, Mastery Crit, Mastery Crit, Mastery Haste. Okay, sure. You can see all of these gems, red or purple. So we're looking at Master, we're looking at Crit. Fantastic. Alright. Item-wise, most popular, or max DPS, overall percents, right? So this is the most popular, it's the highest DPS, is not running legs. But then you see it's 6k better, according to this, to run the legs and drop the helmet. It's weird already, right? Why is it 6k DPS better to drop the helmet? Why is it most popular here to run 4 pieces, but most popular here to run 5? You see how this is already getting tricky? All right, one more. Archon. This is a new one, right? This is a new one, and technically, they are partnered with Wowhead. Wowhead and Archon, one group. I write for Wowhead. This is who I'm partnered with, technically, by proxy. And you'll see here, Crit, Mastery, Haste, Verse. But wait a second, hold on. Crit, Mastery, Verse, Haste. Well, okay, well, this one says Haste over Verse. And this one also is running 5 pieces. And it has the same recommendations, but it doesn't recommend double Nick of Time because This is the Agira dagger I was talking about, and now this is more popular. So we got 5 tier pieces here, and double nick of time. 5 tier pieces here, and 1 nick of time. And this one says 4 tier pieces. So what do you listen to? What do you do? All these pages are saying different things. And on top of that, if you open a guide, you might see some garbage like this. This is garbage I wrote. I'm responsible for this, right? This is me. I'm required to add bis lists into my guides. Because it's what people search for. They go into Google and they type assassination row best in slot. And so my guide, is supposed to show up in Google. It's supposed to get clicks. That's how Wowhead and other companies make their money, by you clicking the links. And so we have to add these bis lists so that people click the links. And you go, okay, well, double nick of time. So far, so good. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of tier. And then we got no crafted pieces. We have a crafted pieces here for the embellishment, but there's no crafted ring. And it's pips. Oh, there are pips here. Well, this is because this is an overall list. I'm not trying to optimize for Raid or Mythic Plus. This is just an overall bis list, which is completely different than what these guys are trying to show, which is Raid. And this one I have set to Raid, and this one, Raid, right? So they're showing you what's most popular. I'm giving you some bis list. This one then shows all of the best items that come from that content. So here, oh look, it's the crafted ring, because there's no good second ring, really. Mythic Plus, same thing. Now you have Sandglass and Branch, right? So you're seeing a lot of similar things, but they're kind of getting mushed together a lot. All right, so now that we know the issues and we know the problems and we're confused, now we're confused. So what do you look for? So first thing you look for, you might go to Blood Mallet. You might see something fancy like this, where you see a big red dot and it says this is the highest DPS, and it's nice and it's visual and it's 3D. And so stacking mastery is bad, stacking haste is bad, stacking verse is bad. But somewhere in the middle here, you have a perfect ratio of, this one, perfect ratio, 30 crit, 30 haste, 20 mastery, 20 verse. Okay, simulated the highest to have this breakdown of stats. First problem, it's very difficult to get this exact breakdown of stats because it doesn't actually use gear. It's trying to emulate and go through and go, okay, well, this much stat, this much stat, this much stat. So is this reasonable? Kind of, right? Because it's a very synthetic situation, and it's not something that your gear actually will reflect. Especially if you're lower item level, for example. If you're not max item level, then you can't even begin to reach these numbers. On top of that, if we look at something like 5 targets, right, now all of a sudden everything's changed, right? So now it's 40, 10, 30, 20. So if you have something like a cleave fight, like, it's different. For Mythic Plus, it's different. And so not only do you need to be at a high item level, you need to have all of these off pieces for all of your situations at a high item level. So unless you're full bis and you have like access to like tournament realm gear and you're able to just get whatever items you want whenever you want them, it doesn't really make much sense, right? And so the next thing is, okay, well, if this doesn't reflect my character, what will? So I have a couple stat weights here. Stat weights are bad, and it says so right here. And if you actually go in stat weights, it has a huge banner that says "Do not do this," and we can check, and you can read through this yourself. But the short of it is that the way stat weights work is it runs your character plus a bunch of main stat, plus a bunch of crit, plus a bunch of haste, plus a bunch of mastery, plus a bunch of verse, and then it averages it back out. So it says if you got 2% from 200 crit, that means 100 crit is 1%, and it just spits that back out, right? And that's what these numbers are. So right now, you'll see mastery and haste very high, right? This is my character, single target build. Nothing weird. I'm using Ashes and a Signet brand. They're both Mythic 489s, right? And so you see Mastery and Haste, which is, again, very different than all of this. Like, crit Mastery versus Haste. Haste is the worst stat here, right? But for me, oh, spoilers. But for me, Mastery and Haste are really high, and Verse and Crit are really low. Kinda weird. Kinda weird. And so, without changing my gear, I'm just going to add PI, which is going to be this one. And then I'm going to remove PI and Wind Fury. So I guess I'll do it in this order. So this is just a standard thing with Wind Fury, no PI. And then if I take away Wind Fury, you see that the numbers are all shifting. And they're shifting a little bit. In some points a little bit more, some points a little bit less, right? Like you'll see Verse goes down a little bit. You can see Crit goes down a little bit as well, right? All the numbers kind of go down, but they're going down differently. Haste is dropping quite a bit as well. So if we add them both back, right? If we look at PI, now all of a sudden, Mastery gained a lot. Haste gained a lot. Everything is gaining a lot, but they're all gaining at different rates, right? Crit is going 0.4, right? So from 8.9 to 9.3. So that's 0.4. But then you're seeing Mastery go up 0.7. So it's shifting by different amounts, right? It's not scaling the same way. And this is part of the problem, because if you take away gear, if you add gear, if you take away externals, if you add externals, all of these numbers are all different, and it's different for every single character, because my character is not your character, right? So this inherently, on top of it being kind of bad and not really fully accurate, if we're just looking at the value of my stats, if I added something right now, it's already changing based on just externals, right? Without changing any gear, you'll see all of this gear, all of this talents, all the same. Without doing anything, the values change. Kind of messed up. But if I do change it, let me just get a static one. So this is Ashes, Wind Fury, no PI, right? You can see the values. Now if I change just my trinket, it's the only change, just my trinket to Branch. You can see Mastery plummets, Haste rises, right? You can see all of these numbers are changing drastically changing, because this is a lot of Mastery, right? Branch is a lot of Mastery. So it doesn't make sense for me to go into Mastery, because I'm getting a lot of it from the Branch. I don't need more, so other stats become more valuable, like Haste, Verse, right? So we went from Mastery Haste to Haste Verse, and Mastery is now the worst stat. Just from changing one item, right? One trinket, and on use. They're both on use, they're both 2 minutes. But because one gives Mastery and one doesn't, our stats have wildly shifted. Okay. Now we're gonna get into a little bit more nitty-gritty stuff. I have a couple of stat plots here. So what this is this 0 points is where my character is right now. And then all the way on the left is losing 1500 of a stat, and all the way on the right is gaining 1500 of a stat. Now, this isn't realistic because I can't gain 1500 of a stat. I'm already for like 86, 87, whatever. But hear me out on this, right? So if we had the ability to gain a bunch of stat, then Haste would be the best stat, Mastery would be the best stat to gain. That's this yellow line, right? Followed by Haste, and then Verse, and then Crit. Fantastic. And you see that these lines are fairly straight. So I'm gonna show you another one. And you see, all of a sudden, Haste is way higher. Super higher, actually. Super crazy higher. But you see the damage didn't really shift too much, right? 216 here is this sim, and then this one's 217. So we're like 1k difference, but all of a sudden, Haste is way more valuable. Way more valuable, and there's a big munge here of the other 3 stats. So, what changed here? I don't know. We'll take a look later. The third and last one I want to show you is this one, where they're all really spread out, right? So you see Crit now all of a sudden the second best stat. Haste, Crit, Verse, Mastery. Down here, Verse and Mastery are very close. Crit, Haste, they all sort of follow the same like linear path, more or less. Obviously there's like little hitches, like you'll see here, this value here of Haste jumps a little bit. But in general, they're all kind of linear, but they're really spread apart. So what's the difference? Well, if we look, this one, if we scroll down, this one's Ashes and Signet Brand. This one is also is Branch and Signet Brand, right? Perfect. And then we have this last one, which is also Branch and Signet Brand. So this one here, with them all spread out, is the same gear as this one here, with them all spread together and haste being really good, right? Haste is still good, but the value of crit here is really weird. Verse is really weird. Mastery is really weird. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that I took my stats and I flipped them. So you see here, I have about 5,000 crit, and I have about like 4,000-ish mastery, 3,500 haste. And I flipped them. It's the same amount of stats, they're just in different spots. So now you see I have 5,000 mastery, and I have 4,000 crit, and a bunch of verse. Like, it's the same stats, but flipped. I flipped them all around, and so now, if I had, for example, sub gear, or if I had outlaw gear, right, the stats would be shifted. So I would have a lot more versatility, for example. So this is what this is showing, right? I flipped them around, and now my weights are much different. I want more crit, and this one doesn't really want that much crit, but it loves haste more. All of these numbers have changed now because I've changed my gear, quote unquote. The last thing here, the silver bullet is this stat weight sim. Where I have haste, verse, crit, mastery. And they're kind of close together, but this is with a branch, right? So mastery is still the worst. And this one, I did the exact same thing. So I flipped all my stats around, and it's in a completely different order once again. So even though it's the same general character, right? It's the same talents, one recommendation doesn't make sense. One bis list doesn't make sense, because just changing gear around changes all your stats. You want to enchant differently, you want to gem differently. An off piece here, right? Like this is a haste mastery belt. If I had, for example, a mastery haste belt, it could be better, right? Or if this belt was haste verse, that would be really good, right? Because mastery sucks. So I have mastery on this belt. Technically, it's bad, but it's still a high item level piece, and it still has a bunch of agility, so I want it, because agility is always kind of the best stat, right? That's why we always say go for item level first. Okay, so now that we've kind of figured out why stats change all the time and why they're all different, what do you do to combat this? What are you supposed to do? And the thing you're supposed to do is just sim yourself, right? Just sim yourself. Top gear works great. So you can see here, the last nail in the coffin, I was doing all of this with double Sophic, not double wafting. And we can actually double check that. Oh, well, this one's wafting. But all of these have Sophic. Sophic, 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 right? So I was using Sophic. Could you tell? Probably not. But now I'm using wafting, right? And so this stat weight at the end, also using wafting. This might actually be a default sim. Yeah, okay. So this is default, but it uses double wafting. And you still see haste at the top, still see burst at the top. But again, like, these changes are very minimal. Okay, so real quick, what can you do to figure this out? So step one is you can just simulate your trinkets straight up, just compare them like this, and it'll compare all the combinations, which one to use first, which one to use second. You can also compare Sophic and wafting together, right? Make sure you have this checked, or else it won't replace them. And you can check some good stats, right? So like haste, mastery here is what I'm checking, and it'll spit you out something like this, right? Where it's like, okay, well, you want to enchant haste. Haste is good. Wafting, haste, mastery, gems, fun stuff, right? And you can see the gem variations here. This one's always funny because if you do big gem sims, you'll very quickly find out why bis lists are kind of stupid. Like, let's say hypothetically, right? If this is 70 haste and 33 mastery, and you have 10 of these gems, we'll say 5 of these gems, that's 350 haste and 150 mastery. You could flip that around. Now you have 350 mastery and 150 haste. So gems can like fill in the gaps that you have very, very easily. And so if you do big gem sims, you'll often see like 15 of these that are all within 100 DPS, 50 DPS, because they're all so close together that it doesn't really matter. But what if you're looking for upgrades, right? What if you're sitting there, you're going, well, what do I focus on then if bis lists are bad and I can't trust any of these data aggregation sites? Well, you just take your character, put it in a droptimizer. This is top gear for all the items you don't have. It's literally what it is, right? You have raid, mythic, heroic. You can choose the upgrade level. You can choose the gem, right? Or no gem at all. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. You can just sim this. If you're looking for mythic plus stuff, just sim that, right? 483 here. This is farmable gear. Just sim it. Droptimizer and top gear, all you need, right? And if you can let this run overnight, I know Droptimizer takes a long time. Top gear, if you sim a bunch of gems, also takes a long time. Just queue it up before bed, let it run. In the morning, you're good to go. I do this when I open my vault. I do a Droptimizer, and then during raid, when I'm raiding, I can look and I can be like, okay, well, I need this piece, and I need this piece, and I need this piece, because it's a slight stat upgrade. Good to go. No problems, right? Just have it on the side. You kill a boss, Alt-Tab. Do I need something from this boss? Oh, those legs are good. I'm going to roll on them. Problem solved. Hopefully that was informative. And why I hate these data aggregation sites, because this is nonsense. This is all nonsense. This is also nonsense, but I write this, so you know, what can I do? I can't do anything. In general, sim your own character. Your own character is your own character for your own reasons. It's not my character, it's not anyone else's character. It'll be a little bit different than everyone else. Okay. Bye ya.